Hello and welcome to FCM's Business Travel Show session on situational awareness. Thanks for taking the time out of the busy show schedule to join us today. We've earmarked about 20 minutes for this session, but we'll be staying on for an extra 5 to 10 minutes or so at the end to answer any questions that may come through. So please pop any questions you may have in the chat window on the right of your screens. With that, I'm going to hand you over to our two presenters today. We have Matthew Damaris, Global Product Leader for FCM Secure, and Peter Saltakis, FCM's Technical Solutions Director. Welcome to you both.
Thank you. So today we're talking about how we can foster a culture of situational awareness using our technology. In order to really get to the point where we can show you what technology we have, we first have to understand what exactly is situational awareness, or how most people know it as, knowing what's going on. To me, what situational awareness means in the context of corporate travel is being cognizant of one's surroundings as it relates to one's safety, health, and well-being. We talk about arming with individuals with tools prior to making a departure, during their trip, and then after the trip, which is when we perform an after-action review, which is what we'll get to a little bit later on in the presentation. In terms of the three stages of situational awareness, or the three concepts behind situational awareness, we think about the critical gathering stage. Now, the critical gathering stage in a traditional context is going to be how we train travelers to identify where an entrance or exit is at a hotel, if the front lobby is staffed 24/7, and then the passage of time from how long it takes to get from their hotel bedroom to the exit stairwell, down to the lobby, and out the front door during something like a fire or some critical incident. In COVID terms, we need to think about it a little bit more holistically. So are face masks supposed to be worn while inside the hotel lobby? What social distancing measures are taking place at the property? How many people are allowed inside the elevator all at once? So that's how we start to imagine what the traveler journey is and help build tools to help them solve some of those problems. The next is the self-awareness stage. The self-awareness stage, again, in the traditional aspect, is knowing that the traveler is going to go through things like thirst, fatigue, hunger. But the way that I personally see it is that we have to start training travelers to identify how to get out of their routines. The typical corporate traveler who hasn't traveled since December or January has to identify that normal routine of putting on his or her headphones, entering into the aircraft and not paying attention to the onboard announcement, that doesn't cut it in COVID-19 world anymore. We have to train them to identify when that's happening, put the headphones down, focus a little bit more on what's going on around them, not just for their own health and safety, but for the health and safety of everybody around them as well. The sequential decision-making stage, that's where a lot of our tools really come in handy. The sequential decision-making stage is being able to take steps to avoid a potential obstacle. So the typical scenario that I use is a traveler who has left the office going back to the hotel. They ordered a ride share. One of the things that we train them to do is to make sure that the ride share is in rideable condition, make sure it doesn't look like the actual car has been in any type of accident recently, make sure the driver looks cognizant of what's going around them. But now in a COVID-19 world, we also try to train travelers to identify whether or not the inside of a car is actually clean or not, because those are touch points where you could contract the COVID-19 infection. Not only that, we want our tools to be able to help travelers in those situations navigate around those obstacles again. So not only forecast, but navigate around, so that if they're in those situations, they can easily cancel a reservation, contact their travel consultant or their third-party risk management company, get out of harm's way, and continue on with their journey. Now, before we actually demo the tools, I'm going to pass it on over to Pete. Pete is going to talk about situational awareness as it relates to human error, and then do a demo of some of the products that we offer.
Thank you, Matt. All right, mistakes happen. That's a common fact. Everyone is human, unless of course you happen to have your dog or cat sitting behind you on this presentation, which is very well possible in today's age. But the reality is everyone makes mistakes, and this is known as human error. Inadequate situational awareness is one of the primary factors in accidents attributed to human error. All human errors basically have consequences. Some are great, some are small. Missing your flight because you went to the wrong terminal, It's not going to kill you. It stinks. There's maybe a financial consequence. Forgetting your significant other's birthday, even though they were giving you every clue that it was their birthday and you should have known, may be a little bit more severe in terms of the consequences. But the reality is, putting yourself today, especially when we're talking about a shift in the profile of what we perceive as threat from something oftentimes tangible or visible to something microscopic, or in this case, viral COVID-19, putting yourself in a high-risk situation at risk of contracting and spreading COVID-19 could very well be a very severe consequence. Human error, in simplest terms, is a core failure point behind an escalated risk incident. Fortunately, a lot of human error can be avoided or at least mitigated. So when it comes down to the context of corporate travel, human error can be mitigated by creating a vigilant corporate structure, which is systemic, the systemic row over here, the bottom on the left, which factors criteria like policy, operating procedures, and corporate controls. Human error can also be mitigated by fostering a culture of vigilance, that is ultimately motivation or motivational. And when it comes down to that, it's really driving employees or travelers in the context of corporate travel to do the right thing, either when no one's looking or because it leads to a betterment of themselves and the people around them. So the reality is, if you fail in both the systemic and motivation categories, you're in serious trouble. Hence, this box is red. Parents can teach their children to look both ways when crossing the street, or to perhaps put their phone down when they're driving. Don't look at it, don't text, because that lowers your situational awareness. And that also increases your probability of a negative consequence, an accident, either getting hit by a car or hitting someone yourself, depending on that example. But the same thing also applies to corporate travelers, tying that back to what Matt was saying with put your headphones down, pay attention when the flight attendants are talking to you, understand the protocols, understand the procedures. So the reality here is you can only put information in front of people. When and where you distribute that information is critical. How people respond is a measure of your success as corporate travel professionals to get them to do what you want them to do when you aren't there to do it with them or for them. We'll of course talk about how at FCM we use technology to help be there through a virtual presence. But when it comes down to it, to expect the unexpected shows a thoroughly modern intellect, said Oscar Wilde, and probably also my dad. So what we're trying to do here again is create this vigilant behavior while also putting some bumpers around the bowling lane there, so not everyone's hitting a gutter ball. We can try to keep people on course with these little nudges. Great example of this in practice, Smokey the Bear campaign came out in the 1940s saying that care will prevent 9 out of 10 forest fires, which evolved into only you can prevent forest fires. Smokey's not necessarily real, but it's the presence of Smokey in the back of your head or perhaps on some signage at a campsite that increases your situational awareness. This is what we try to do in corporate travel, as well as with our messaging tools that I'll demo here in just a moment. Highly effective campaign. You see, this is the kind of analogous comparison, a woman putting out her fire after she's made some s'mores or had a campsite or whatever. We want our travelers to be like this woman, aware that their actions have potential consequences. Whereas, of course, we still know that some people, especially when they're not equipped with the right information, are predisposed to act like this picture here on the right. There's a fire, they freak out, they run like hell. So campaigns like Smokey the Bear, or however you incorporate this sort of virtual signage and messaging in your digital space within corporate travel, ultimately help inspire systemic and motivational situational awareness, just like we showed on that matrix a couple slides ago. It's this kind of vigilance that we want, especially in light of COVID-19. So what I'm going to do here is let's pause real quick and let's talk about SAM, our mobile app at FCM. And we'll also show you what we're doing with our technology partner friends at SHEP. So let me throw this up here on the screen. For those of you who have not seen SAM before, this has been out on the market. It stands for Smart Assistant for Mobile. It's FCM's proprietary mobile app. You get it plain and simple, by being a customer of ours. You can even go out and download the free light version without all the corporate integrations right off the App Store or Google Play today. Use it for your personal trips that you might be planning for next year at this rate. But outside of just syncing itineraries, as we see here on SAM, and bringing that information into the fold, SAM uses narrow AI to provide contextually relevant updates pre and during a trip. As we can see, as I'm walking through the sequence, checking for your flight's tomorrow in 24 hours. What's the weather? You got to pack an umbrella. What are you going to throw in your suitcase? Is it jacket weather? Is it swimsuit weather? Delays, notifications, cancellations by bringing in the flight stats API that aggregates airline as well as airport data. But let's tie that back to risk, right? And situational awareness. Situationally aware people, if you get an alert like this that says, maybe there's a strike. All right, well, let me read that. Oops, I clicked the wrong button. Let me read that. We're bringing this information in through our partners at WorldAware, who are able to deliver this information in real time to travelers by cross-populating this API with the itinerary that sits within SAM. Or very well, it could say movement restrictions, like I'll show in just a moment, or entry-exit requirements. Same thing is also applicable here when it comes down to different personas within the travel program. Looking through it here in this staged demo environment, I also have these notifications being delivered to travel arrangers. As you can see, I have multiple people that I arrange travel for in this hypothetical situation, right? Let's say Chris is one of my travelers. I'm Chris's executive assistant. Chris is the CEO. There's been a delay, or there's been a bomb threat, or Chris is going to a high-risk area. Not only is Chris receiving these advisories, but I'm getting them. So that's actually two levels of people who, through this technology, are situationally aware of what's going on, boots on the ground intelligence from WorldAware, and then ultimately you can craft your response to that action, whether you call your travel company, FCM like us, get reaccommodated, or perhaps reach out to the traveler, say, hey, just want to make sure you saw that, just be extra careful. You can even drop a pin on our mobile app here, like I had accidentally clicked a moment ago, and even tie this in with our secure product offering that Matt oversees on the back end, which is a management front end tool for travel managers, being that we personify our technology by travelers, bookers, and managers. We've covered all three of those different topics just in the last 2 minutes here. So with SAM, what we do here again is just deliver information to help raise that situational awareness when you can't physically be there. So that's when you're kind of pre-trip and on-trip. Let's talk about before you've even booked the trip. I'm going to go over here, a couple screens here. And what we're looking at now is the SHEP management toolbar. SHEP is a technology partner of FCM's and Flight Center Travel Groups. We inked about 23% stake in their business on January 1st, 2020. And this was pre-COVID, right? SHEP's core offering at the time was they had their ability to bring in kind of leaked data by capturing that through their award-winning browser extension toolbar, being that if someone went to Booking or Delta or Expedia.com and booked outside of your managed travel program, they could bring that in. Well, we made a little bit of a pivot, really, with the advent of COVID, and we said, you know what, this Notify product, which is what I'm going to show you here and what we're looking at right now, really has some validity when it comes down to creating augmented situational awareness based on users' browsing behavior and how they're navigating through the internet while they're making a booking. So what I'm showing you here as a manager, you can go in and you can, create these different rules based on the different sites that you're on, and you can make it pop up, or in this case, this is an example, Paris, right? You have to 14-day self-quarantine, or make different keywords and keystrokes, basically produce a front-end pop-up on the Notify plugin for the end user. So this again is the driver's seat, the manager. But for the regular traveler, let's go in here. I'm actually going to sign into a demo profile on FCM's Hub, our cloud-based profile management system, global in nature in over 80 countries, single sign-on integrations into over 20 different online booking tools. This example I'm showing you is hooked up with a US-based GDS and pseudo-city code, and a Concur travel demo site. So I'm going to open Concur, right? We're opening Concur. We just SSO'd in. That's great. And I'm going to go in here. I'm a traveler or I'm a travel arranger now, right? Depending on your permissions within your Concur site or whatever other tool that you happen to be using. And I can go in here and type something like, I want to go to Brazil, right? Let's maybe think about Rio de Janeiro, Sao Paulo. I can click any of those. But what's happening on the right side of the screen here, when my internet cooperates, is it's actually pulling up a full-fledged map of South America travel restrictions, which is pulling from the EU CDC, right? This is just an example of information we can deliver that doesn't necessarily sit within Concur itself, but that we can superimpose onto the screen here, right? I can drill in, I can see additional limitations, I can click, I can even pivot, right? Depending on what the capability of that pop-up notification is. Same thing is also applicable if I type in, we talked about Paris earlier. I showed you this example a moment ago within the admin module. We can see here, depending on what's happening, we can update these, of course, on the back end. We can put you in the driver's seat. These are very dynamic. We can whitelist literally any site, and there are over thousands of sites that Shep is already capable of white labeling in order to produce these pop-ups. Let's also look at what happens outside of perhaps a strategic booking tool. Booking.com, right? Same thing. I'm a traveler and I'm booking through an outside TMC channel directly through an OTA, right? New Zealand, or maybe I'm going to Germany, or I can type in Berlin specifically and get country or city specific details. I'll go ahead, click here, entry exit requirements, what's happening in Germany. It's going to load up a map, and I can even click to drill in for the full-blown details. It's a lot of things we can do with this tool, with Shep Notify, in order to deliver situational awareness. More so, even here, we can even deliver situationally aware notifications to say you have a credit on file with this particular air carrier. Again, there are so many different applications for the Shep product, not just within the risk umbrella, but just the broader context of corporate travel. So that's really that for the demo. We'll take questions on that at the end here. And Matt has a couple minutes here to really take us home. So back to you, Matt.
Thanks, Pete, and great demo. Listen, we try to build these tools by understanding what exactly the traveler journey is. And we only have 2 minutes, so I'm going to go through these last 2 slides very quickly. We create these trying to understand what are the obstacles that the traveler goes through prior to even making a reservation. What does the traveler go through? What are the pain points during his or her trip? In case of an emergency, how is that traveler being notified and then given the options to communicate with their travel consultant or their third-party risk management company? And then how are we helping customers voice their feedback so that we can continue to innovate from a product perspective? Next slide. More so, we try to actually sit down with organizations and understand what their needs are. So we aren't building these products for ourselves, we're really building them for you. So we want to understand how can we help you train and prepare your travelers? Are you making it mandatory to download the TMC's app or your third-party risk management company's app? Are you making it mandatory for travelers to go to the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program, log their information so that when they're traveling abroad, they're being updated by the US Embassy in that country? Notify and communicate. We try to ask customers, how are you effectively communicating with your traveling workforce? What tools can we put in place or what modules can we put in place in order to help you there? And then, of course, more importantly, what are you doing to effectively communicate with your travelers after the trip? Because the only way that we can continue to innovate is to continue to get feedback from you, from your travelers, and create tools that are going to help solve their problems. So that's really the gist behind our risk management methodology and our product methodology. So with that said, I want to thank everybody here today for joining. I said to Pete earlier that this webinar probably could have gone a whole hour. So I don't want anyone here to hesitate to reach out to us. I have a global travel risk committee here for FCM that's global. Pete is our representative here in North America. We're always willing to answer your questions and do our best to help you in any way that we can. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Matt, and thanks, Peter. That was a great session. I just got one question in here for Peter around Shep. And just regarding how customizable those SHEP alerts are and how they can be integrated within, set practices like approvals.
Certainly. Totally customizable. In fact, in addition to the whitelisted domains, you can add your own domains. You can give us a list of parameters that you want on which sites. We can have custom messaging, whether that's, please revert back to the policy, or we can even have some degree of, soft approval process, like you mentioned on the question, baked into this workflow. This is fully trackable. This is available in, I want to say, 1/3 of the countries in which FCM operates today. We're still scaling this out together with them, being that this is a new partnership. Very exciting with where we can go with this, and ultimately the sky is the limit as far as really the customization of the solution.
Excellent. Thank you both. And as Matt mentioned, we are available today or after this session to answer any questions you may have and help develop your risk management profile and tools. So please chat to the team today on the virtual stand, get in touch via our website at fcmtravel.com. Thanks and have a great day further.
Thank you, everybody.